The Painted Ladies of Shanghai, Addiction in Colonial China's Underworld. The year was 1928. Shanghai, the Paris of the East, was a city of delirious contrasts. Its international settlement was a blinding theater of European indulgence, neon signs, jazz orchestras, and sleek motor cars. But beneath the dazzling facade lay a labyrinth of shadowed alleys, opium dens, and desperate souls. This was the true kingdom of the underworld, where wealth and ruin walked hand in hand, and the most prized possessions were not gold, but secrets. Our story begins in the heart of this duality, within the luxurious yet suffocating walls of the Golden Phoenix Guesthouse, a European-run establishment where deals were struck and lives were sold with equal nonchalance. Chapter 1. The Gilded Cage. Target time: 07 minutes. End. The air in the Golden Phoenix was thick with the scent of French perfume and expensive cigars. The room pulsed with the rhythm of a Western foxtrot, an ironic soundtrack to the crumbling empire outside. Into this scene stepped Lily. Lily, known to the Europeans as Madame Mei Ling, was one of Shanghai's most celebrated painted ladies. Her silk cheongsam was cut in the latest style, her hair a lacquered helmet, and her face a carefully constructed mask of serene confidence. She moved through the crowd not as a servant of pleasure, but as a silent orchestrator of the night. Men, bankers, diplomats, and shadowy businessmen paused their conversations to watch her. They saw beauty. Few saw the sharp, calculating mind beneath the veneer, and fewer still the haunting terror in her eyes. Lily stopped by a secluded, velvet-draped booth where Mr. Jiang, a stout, impeccably dressed Chinese businessman, waited. Jiang had built his fortune on the twin vices of colonial Shanghai: real estate speculation and the burgeoning, lucrative trade in opium. He was polite, almost deferential, yet his eyes held the flat, cold look of a predator. "Mei Ling," Jiang greeted her, his voice a low, gravelly purr. "You are late. Time, like certain commodities, is precious." Lily offered a small, practiced smile. "My apologies, Mr. Jiang. A woman of my position must always maintain an air of mystery. It increases the price." She sat opposite him, her posture flawless. "Tonight, I require more than mystery," Jiang said, leaning in. "My competition, Mr. Thorne, the British shipping magnate, is becoming troublesome. He is smuggling a consignment of white powder through the concession, bypassing my usual routes. I need to know his final drop-off point. It must be tonight." Lily's hand, resting on the table, tightened imperceptibly. White powder. The clandestine code for the potent, purified drug that held her captive. It was her weakness, her silent master. "Thorne is careful," Lily replied, her voice cool. "His suite is guarded. The information will cost you significantly. Not just money, but—" Jiang chuckled, a dry, unpleasant sound. He opened a small, polished wooden box and slid it across the table. Inside, nestled on crimson silk, was a small, tightly folded paper packet. Lily's breath hitched. Her body instantly recognized the promise of oblivion it held. "Consider it a retainer, my dear," Jiang said. "The full payment and a generous supply of comfort when the documents are in my hand." Lily felt the familiar wave of self-disgust wash over her. She hated the game, the subservience, the trade of her intellect and soul for a fleeting moment of peace. But the physical craving was a relentless tide. "Deal, Mr. Jiang," she whispered, slipping the packet into the hidden pocket of her dress. "You will have Thorn's manifest before dawn." As Lily stood to leave, her eyes met those of Inspector Williams, a tall, stern-faced British policeman from the International Settlement Force, standing by the bar. Williams was a man who understood the geometry of power in Shanghai. He knew the connections, Jiang's illegal trade, the foreign officials he bribed, and the crucial role the painted ladies played as informants. Williams saw Lily not as a victim, but as a sophisticated tool, a necessary link in the chain of the underworld. He gave her a sharp, almost imperceptible nod, a reminder, "You are mine now." Lily averted her gaze, her beautiful mask cracking just a fraction. She was caught between three masters: the drug that owned her body, the criminal who owned her secrets, and the lawman who owned her freedom. Chapter 2. The Opium Labyrinth. Target time, 8 to 15 minutes. Lily's task required the precision of a thief and the charm of a courtesan. Thorn, the British magnate, occupied the most exclusive suite. Lily used her reputation as a distraction, her charm as a key. She convinced the guard she was delivering a private, late-night message from a supposed high-ranking official. Her practiced grace disarmed him. Once inside, the real Lily emerged. She didn't panic. Her hands, steady and quick, located the documents hidden within a false bottom of Thorn's travel trunk. They confirmed Jiang's suspicions. Thorn was indeed moving a large shipment of white powder through a dockyard in the French concession, bypassing the settlement's customs. With the manifest clutched tightly in her hand, the adrenaline high of the theft began to fade, replaced by a consuming dread. The familiar, deep-seated anxiety of her life, of constant surveillance, of betrayal, of the gnawing hunger, returned with vengeance. Period. She didn't head back to the Golden Phoenix. She headed for the back alleys, a maze of ancient stone and shadows, towards her only sanctuary. She headed for the back alleys, a maze of ancient stone and shadows, towards her only sanctuary. It was a squalid, smoke-filled hole, a place where people came to trade their miserable realities for a few hours of artificial bliss. The air was heavy, sweet with the sick-making scent of burning opium mixed with stale sweat. Lily entered, pulling her shawl tighter, trying to make her expensive attire less conspicuous. She approached a small, thin woman working the lamps. This was Afen. Afen, once a vibrant girl from Lily's own village, was now a mere ghost, her body worn down by years of working in the den, and a slow, consuming addiction of her own. She looked up, her eyes dull, but they flickered with a brief spark of recognition. "Mei Ling? You shouldn't be here. Someone might see you." Afen's voice was a dry rasp. "I need a session, Afen." "The usual," Lily said, her voice shaking slightly. She pressed a silver coin into Afen's hand. Afen looked at the coin, then at Lily's face, the beautiful, perfect face that belonged to another world. "You are becoming like the others, Mei Ling. The smoke takes everything." "It takes the shame," Lily retorted sharply. "It takes the fear. It takes the life I have to live every day. Now light the lamp." Afen sighed, leading Lily to a private, low-slung couch. Soon, the tiny black ball of opium was heated, bubbling, and the long pipe was in Lily's hand. She took a deep draw, then another, and another. The world dissolved. The cold marble of the Golden Phoenix, the demanding voice of Jiang, the judging eyes of Williams, all faded into a warm, cottony cloud. In the gentle, hazy space of the drug's embrace, Lily was no longer a commodity. She was Mei Ling again, the clever girl who dreamed of being a scholar, before poverty and the colonial machine had devoured her. The euphoria was brief, but necessary. It was the only way she could steel herself for the next act of the performance, the next betrayal. The addiction was not just a physical need. It was a psychological shield, a way to survive the unbearable moral weight of her life in the underworld. Chapter 3: The Price of Treason. The following morning, Lily felt hollowed out but clear-headed. The opium's dulling effect had subsided, leaving a sharp, cold clarity. She had the documents. She met Mr. Jiang not at a flashy guest house, but in a dusty, dimly lit storage room behind one of his warehouses, a place that smelled of jute and danger. Jiang was pacing excitedly. "Well, do you have it?" Lily presented the stolen manifest. Jiang snatched it, his eyes scanning the details greedily. "Excellent. Thorn is finished. With this I can intercept his entire shipment and ruin his relationship with the French consul. You are a miracle, Mei Ling." He pulled out a heavy purse filled with silver dollars and a large new packet of the white powder. "Here is your reward. Enjoy your comfort, my dear. You have earned it." Lily took the purse, but left the packet of powder untouched. "I don't want it." Jiang stopped, surprised. "You don't want it? Are you ill?" "I want something else, Mr. Jiang," Lily said, her voice steady. "I want out. I want the deed to the apartment I live in, and I want an exit visa to Hong Kong. A clean one, arranged by your contacts." Jiang roared with laughter. "You think you can just leave? Mei Ling, you are part of the machine now. You know too much about me, about Thorn, about the Europeans. You are a painted lady, a beautiful tool, but tools do not ask for retirement." As Jiang finished his sentence, the heavy door burst open. Inspector Williams stood silhouetted against the bright outside light, his service revolver drawn. Behind him, 3 armed officers streamed in. "Mr. Jiang?" Williams' voice was flat and authoritative. "You are under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and illegal trafficking of controlled substances. This manifest is our evidence." Jiang's face went white. He spun towards Lily, his eyes burning with furious disbelief. You betrayed me. I gave you everything." Lily met his gaze, showing no emotion. "You gave me a chain, Jiang. I simply chose who I would give the other end to." Williams stepped forward, holstering his weapon. "The charges are solid, Jiang. Lily has provided us with 3 weeks' worth of information on your operations, including your key contacts in the settlement police and the location of this very warehouse." Jiang lunged at Lily, but the officers restrained him. "You're dead, Mei Ling. The underworld never forgets a face. The drug will kill you first." Lily watched him struggle, a faint flicker of pain in her eyes. "Perhaps," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "But at least I will die on my own terms, not yours." Williams approached Lily after Jiang was dragged away. "A very clever move, Lily. Using the white powder as a bargaining chip, playing the addict to get close, then selling him out. Very well done." Lily's veneer of strength almost crumbled. "The deal, Inspector, my ticket out, and the medical assistance you promised." Williams' expression hardened. "The ticket is being processed, but understand this, Lily. Shanghai's underworld has long arms. You are an informant now, a valuable asset. The moment you leave, you become a liability. You will need to remain quiet, anonymous, and far from this city for the rest of your life. The addiction, as you call it, is a disease that follows you. It is a leash you will wear for a long time. Don't mistake this freedom for peace. Parentensis. Lily nodded, the reality of her uncertain future hitting her with the force of a cold wave. Williams had kept his promise, but he had also confirmed that she had simply traded one gilded cage for another, slightly larger one. Chapter 4. The Fog of Freedom. 2 days later. The air was cool and damp, thick with the mist rolling in from the Huangpu River. Lily was waiting on a secluded pier, a small, worn suitcase at her feet, all the possessions she would take from her glamorous, ruined life. A Fen, her face still gaunt, but wearing a cleaner, simpler dress, approached her cautiously. Lily had arranged for her friend's release from the den, giving her a small cache of the silver she'd received from Jiang. "Are you really leaving, Mei Ling?" A Fen asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I have to. The Shanghai you and I knew is a beautiful poison, A Fen. If I stay, it will kill me one way or another." Lily pressed a remaining wad of cash into A Fen's hand. "Go back to our village. Start over. Don't look back." A Fen wept silently, embracing Lily briefly. "Be safe, my beautiful friend, and be strong." Lily watched her friend disappear into the morning mist. She was now truly alone. She opened the small suitcase, looking at the few mementos: a faded picture of her parents, a worn silk handkerchief, and a single, small, final packet of the white powder. It was her insurance. The drug Williams had promised for her treatment had been delivered to her privately. It was the last link to her old life, the final temptation. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Her fingers twitched, desperate to tear the paper wrapper. The sweet, silent promise of escape, the soothing warmth that would silence the fear of the future. It was all there. One last time, a voice whispered in her mind, just to calm the nerves. Lily closed her eyes, breathing in the cold, damp air, pushing the familiar, craving sickness down. She remembered the cold, dead eyes of Mr. Jiang, the calculating cruelty of Inspector Williams, and the ghostly misery of A Fen. The drug had been her master, and it had been the master of every soul in the underworld. She walked to the edge of the pier, looked at the dense, gray river water, and with a sudden, forceful thrust, she threw the packet far out into the murky currents. It sank without a trace. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. It was the first act of her new life. A small, single-masted junk boat drifted into the pier. The captain, a grizzled man with kind eyes, nodded to her. "Hong Kong?" "South," Lily replied, pulling her shawl over her head. She climbed aboard. The boat pushed off. Lily stood on the deck, watching the legendary skyline of Shanghai recede. The tall European buildings, the banks, the nightclubs, the golden towers of commerce and sin, were gradually swallowed by the morning fog. The painted lady of Shanghai was gone. Only Mei Ling remained, navigating a lonely boat toward an unknown horizon, leaving behind the glittering, dark empire of addiction and betrayal. The underworld was receding, but its shadow, like the memory of the sweet, sickening smoke, was a companion she would carry for a long, long time. The fight had just begun. Chapter 5. The Salt of the Sea. The small junk boat smelled of brine, dried fish, and cheap tobacco. For 3 days, it was Mei Ling's world. The glamour of Shanghai was not just geographically distant, it was an echo in a fever dream. Lily, the painted lady, was gone. Only Mei Ling, the desperate fugitive, remained. The journey was her first crucible. The white powder had sunk to the bottom of the Huangpu River, but its ghost remained, a cruel tenant in her very blood. The first 24 hours were a waking hell. Nausea seized her, followed by spasms that shook her frail body. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Her mind, stripped bare by withdrawal, played cruel tricks, flashing back to the warm, intoxicating oblivion of the opium den. Every craving was a voice, whispering promises of peace if she would just turn back, if she would just find some relief. But she had burned the bridge. She endured the cold sweat and the agonizing cramps on a thin mat below deck, clinging to the wooden rib of the boat as if it were the only tether to the world. She thought of A Fen, trapped. She thought of Mr. Jiang, defeated. And she thought of Inspector Williams, whose cold deal had bought her this miserable freedom. She refused to let any of them win by letting the addiction drag her back. When the boat finally limped into the port of Victoria Harbor, Hong Kong, Mei Ling was barely able to stand. The humidity hit her like a damp, heavy blanket, but the air felt cleaner, salty, and new. This city, too, was a chaotic mosaic of east and west, but the faces were different, the energy less predatory than Shanghai's. She found a humble, anonymous boarding house in the less trafficked lanes near Kennedy Town. It was a dusty, cramped room with a single window overlooking a noisy street and the distant, glistening bay. It cost a fraction of the silver she carried, but it was safe. It was hers. The worst of the physical withdrawal had passed, leaving her weak and brittle. She looked into the cracked mirror on the wall. The perfect porcelain mask was gone. Her skin was sallow, her eyes ringed with exhaustion, and her lips were cracked. This raw face was the first honest reflection she had seen in years. She had money, enough to sustain her for months, maybe a year, if she was careful. But money alone couldn't build a new life. Only work could do that. And in a city as complex as Hong Kong, a woman with no legitimate history, no family ties, and a well-known face in certain circles, was an immediate target. On her third day in Hong Kong, Mei Ling ventured out. She knew she couldn't risk returning to the high-stakes game of information brokerage. Her intelligence was too sharp, her past too dangerous. She needed a skill that required hands and patience, not secrets. She found a small, bustling tea house in a busy commercial district. It was known for its finely ground teas and its clientele of respected merchants and scholars. The owner, a stern but fair elderly woman named Auntie Zhou, seemed perpetually stressed. Mei Ling presented herself not as a painted lady, but as a former silk factory worker who had fled the turmoil of the northern war zones. Her story was simple, her Cantonese imperfect but passable, and her demeanor humble. "You have soft hands," Auntie Zhou observed, looking critically at Mei Ling's uncalloused fingers. "Too soft for a factory worker." "My hands know how to be precise, Auntie Zhou," Mei Ling replied, meeting her gaze. "They know how to handle delicate things without damage, and I am willing to learn anything you teach me." Auntie Zhou studied her for a long moment, noticing the quiet intensity beneath the fatigue. She saw the remnants of wealth and education, a rarity in someone seeking such menial work. She saw a past she didn't want to investigate. "We need help preparing the tea leaves, grinding the spices, and serving," Auntie Zhou finally said. "The work is hard, the pay is little, and you must be early. No excuses." "I will be the earliest, Auntie Zhou," Mei Ling promised. The prospect of honest, exhausting labor felt like medicine for her soul. For the next few weeks, the tea house was Mei Ling's sanctuary and her prison. She traded silk for rough cotton, French perfume for the earthy scent of drying tea leaves. Every morning, she rose before dawn, her muscles aching from the unaccustomed manual labor, but her mind clear. Her greatest test came late one evening. A group of wealthy, loud European merchants entered the tea house, demanding strong spirits. Auntie Zhou refused, stating her house only served tea and herbal wine. The men were aggressive. One of them, a heavy-set German with a loud laugh, spotted Mei Ling wiping a table. "Well, well, look at this little flower. Why are you wasting your beauty here, Mei Ling? Come sit with us. We have better things than tea to offer, and I bet you know exactly what I mean." The name from her past life hit her like a physical blow. She froze, her breath catching. The German had recognized the aura of Shanghai, even without the makeup. Auntie Zhou stepped in front of her, her small frame rigid with fury. "Out! This is a respectable establishment." Mei Ling, however, slowly put down her rag. She looked the man directly in the eye, and the cold, unblinking authority she had once used on gangsters and diplomats returned. "My name is Lin Mei," she stated, her voice quiet but carrying absolute conviction. "I do not know you, sir, and this tea house is not interested in your business." The German merchant hesitated, sensing something dangerous and utterly alien in her calm refusal. He saw not a frightened girl, but a wall. Grumbling, he and his companions were escorted out by a pair of local merchants who had witnessed the exchange. Mei Ling stood there, trembling, but triumphant. She had faced the ghost of Lili, and she had won. Her new identity, Lin Mei, was forged not in glamour, but in honest defiance. She had survived the underworld, but her true fight, the lifelong battle for self-control and freedom from the shadows, had just begun. Chapter 6. The Shadow on the Harbor. Lin Mei's hard-won peace at Auntie Zhou's tea house was a fragile thing. Her new identity, forged in sweat and sobriety, held up under the scrutiny of honest folk. But the underworld was a patient hunter. She knew that every criminal network had eyes in every port, especially in a hub like Hong Kong, which was merely a southern extension of the Shanghai trade routes. The first sign that her past was a shadow, not just a memory, came on a rainy Tuesday. Lin Mei was meticulously grinding cardamom. The rhythmic, calming movement usually focused her mind. She looked up and saw a man seated by the window, nursing a cup of cheap green tea. He was Chinese, dressed in a sharp, modern Western suit, too expensive for the clientele of Auntie Zhou's modest establishment. He wasn't loud or demanding like the German merchant. He was perfectly still, observant, and deadly quiet. He had the look of a snakehead, a human trafficker, or an intelligence operative, a professional who used silence instead of noise to exert power. He didn't look at her directly, but Lin Mei felt his gaze skimming her reflection in the glass of the window. His presence was an anomaly, a perfectly polished stone in a rough stream. Lin Mei's stomach tightened. She continued grinding, her movements precise, refusing to acknowledge him. The cardinal rule of escaping the underworld was invisibility. Reacting would confirm recognition. The man, however, had patience that matched her own. He returned the next day, and the day after. He never ordered more than a single cup of tea, and he always left a generous tip. His silence was a deliberate torment, a psychological pressure cooker. Lin Mei realized he wasn't waiting for a sign. He was delivering a sign. Auntie Zhou, who missed nothing, noticed the unwelcome patron. That man, she muttered to Lin Mei while counting coins. He smells of old money and new trouble. He is not here for the tea. On the 5th day, the man finally made his move. Auntie Joe had stepped out briefly to visit the market. Lin Mei was alone, wiping down the counter. The man walked up to the counter and placed a small, folded piece of paper next to the sugar bowl. "The tea here is excellent, Lin Mei," he said, his Mandarin smooth and accented with a distinct northern cadence. Shanghai Mandarin. He used the name she had chosen for herself, confirming he had done his homework. "But your talents are wasted on mere leaves. Some old friends have been asking about you. They believe you owe them a debt." Refusing to look at the paper. "You have mistaken me for someone else, sir. I am Lin Mei. I owe no one anything but honest work." The man gave a dry, humorless smile. "The papers say you are Lin Mei, but the eyes I saw across the Golden Phoenix Ballroom belong to Mei Ling. We know about the trade you struck with the British. We know about Mr. Jiang. And we know that Inspector Williams is a greedy man who only protects people as long as they serve him." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Williams' protection has an expiry date, Mei Ling. And the gentleman who owned the white powder that Mr. Jiang intercepted? They don't forget the painted lady who helped collapse their operation." He straightened up, his eyes now cold and direct. "They need information about Williams' movements in the South. Your life is forfeit unless you agree to report to us. Consider this your new job. It is much easier than scrubbing floors, and the payment will cover your needs." He tapped his finger on the folded paper. Lin Mei knew it contained a contact number, a meetup time, and perhaps a small toxic sample of the thing she desperately fought to resist. She picked up the paper, but instead of opening it, she tore it slowly into 4 neat pieces. The snakehead's smile vanished. His face became a mask of cold fury. "You are making a fatal error, painted lady." "I am making a choice," Lin Mei corrected him, her voice strong despite the pounding of her heart. "The only debt I had was to the opium. I paid it with pain. I don't work for criminals anymore. You can tell your friends in Shanghai that the woman they are looking for is dead." She swept the torn pieces of paper off the counter and into the trash bin. The man stood there for a moment, his gaze promising bloody retribution. Then, just as quietly as he had arrived, he turned and walked out the door, disappearing into the persistent Hong Kong rain. Lin Mei slumped against the counter, her legs weak. She had just refused the underworld, and by doing so, had declared war on the most dangerous people she knew. She had bought herself time, but freedom would be a constant, active struggle. The shadow of Shanghai had finally found her.